are gold and blue. Born in 1872, the greatest team in the world, we are known. As we follow on, we are the people through and through, the gold and blue since.
Hello, all. Good afternoon, and welcome to Bold and Blue 1872. I am Chris, and you might have noticed that it's not just me today. I have a partner in crime joining me for the first time on today's show. How are you doing, my friend Jack? How's things?
Not bad, Chris. First and foremost, thank you for having me on and inviting me along to discuss all things Rangers, which I'm sure we are most definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, couldn't have picked a better time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting a bit. I don't know if I'm not tired of talking about Rangers. I'll never get to that point, but I'm getting a bit tired of the same stuff at the moment. But let's get into it. I think we'll have a look at the game from last night, Sturm Graz game. Obviously, the fallout from that. Have a chat about Martin and his gift that keeps giving, his pressers. And I'd like to, if we've got some time today with you, Jack, just to have a chat about Robbie Thelwell's appointment and some other news that's broken in the last few hours about some confrontations that happened with Thelwell and Stewart. And I'm not sure, I didn't even have a chance to clue you up on this one, but I'm not sure if you noticed, but there's a new CCO being appointed. So yeah, let's get to it. Thoughts on the game last night? I mean, I think that I've tried to be fair with the teams that we're playing against. In the last game in Genk, I did in my last video. I did give a bit of credit to Genk. I didn't think they were the mugs that people were making them out to be. And I don't think Sturm Graz are any mugs either. But I just did some brief looks on the cost of their squad and transfer market, their positions over the last couple of years. I mean, for me, I don't know what you think about this, Jack, but the Belgian league and the Austrian league are miles apart, and Sturm Graz might be great in the Austrian league, but their squad is literally on paper like half the cost of ours. So, not sure what you thought of the opponents, but I didn't think this was a team that should be posing as many problems.
Yeah, I think on that, just taking away from what happened in the actual game last night, which I'm sure we'll discuss more. I think one of the things I've heard kind of bandied about quite a lot is Rangers over the last couple of seasons in Europe, even going back to Steven Gerrard's time in charge, would have at least taken 4 points from the possible 6 that were on offer.
Yeah.
With regards to Sturm Graz himself, I personally believe we made them look a lot better maybe than what they were. I think, and we'll dive further into it, but if you look at even how the second half played out, Rangers started to dominate more, have more chances, etc. And there was points where Sturm Graz looked like they were under pressure and were quite almost taken aback compared to the first half. So yeah, I don't think they were any great shakes. Yes, I think Genk were probably more of an upgrade compared to Sturm Graz. However, I don't really think it matters who we're playing at the minute. I think we are making most teams look better than they should look, whether that's home or away at the minute.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. Livingston made us look good at the weekend there. So, I mean, I'm comparing Genk to Sturm Graz, but I mean, compare even Livingston to the likes of the other teams that we've played, Dundee, Motherwell, teams that have made us we've made them look a lot better than they should be, certainly on paper. Then it's hard to argue. It's it's a recurring theme at the moment, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, let's have a look at how we lined up last night. So one change from the team that started against Livy, we had Chermiti coming in. So we're starting with Butland at the back, Tav, Cornelius and Soapy, Magoma. Then we've got Barron and Raskin sitting deep in the midfield with Asgard just in front of them. Gassama on the left, Antman on the right, and like I said, Chermiti is the only change. We're starting with him up front. what did you make of that lineup, Jack? Were you concerned, or was any? Obviously, the Chermiti one sticks out, but me personally, I've been hoping to see more of him. But I'm also quite optimistic that Miovski's a player that I've thought for a while that would have suited us quite well. But I just don't know if it makes a difference with a striker at the moment. But yeah, what did you think of that?
I think, well, just on the point there about what striker it is, I mean, I really don't know who you could put up there at the minute who's going to, have enough service, have enough kind of interplay between, the midfield and the attack. And, there's just not enough, to use that word, relationships, with the midfield and the attack to, MD could, be there and there wouldn't be, a great amount of chances. For me,
Yeah.
I was really interested to see Chermiti. I wanted to see more of him. I mean, that might come with the fact that we've spent 8 million, possibly going up to 10 on him. So, there was that. Miovski is a striker that when he was leaving Aberdeen, I was very, very keen, to think, could we get this guy in? I think he can finish. I think even with the goal he scored recently, it was kind of that penalty box striker. You get in there, it gets a goal. But yeah, there wasn't really any surprises other than you would say the Chermiti one for me.
Yeah. I said it for the last match as well. I actually think that regardless of the change up front with that number 9 spot that I've mentioned before, I think we could probably have Haaland. We could have a prime Brazilian Ronaldo up there right now, and I don't think it would make much difference. But the rest of the team, I think, is probably. I've been quite vocal that I'm not the biggest fan of Dio in the past, and I don't think he should be in there on merit. I think Barron's done a decent job when he has been used this season so far. So I thought the starting lineup was okay. And again, I keep trying to detract from the price tag on Chermiti and just try and give this guy a chance and see what he's all about. But again, I'm not sure it does make a difference. But yeah, the game starts, and not surprised to be honest with you. Just we start with that high line again, and I'm just. You can see there's a lot of work rate going into what the guys are trying to do at the start of the game. They're obviously under high expectations to turn things around, and they're starting games like that. That you can see there's a lot of desire and a bit of passion about them, and very quickly, in my opinion, it just disintegrates because they're playing a style of football that is just leaving them wide open to the opposition. But yeah, and we're very quickly pinned back from a really, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. I was flabbergasted just watching Tavernier take about 20 seconds to take a throw it to no one, and have the ball immediately come back at us, and they're in our 18-yard box, and one of the boys pings it across, and the Slovakian lad sticks it in the back of the net. I could see it coming a mile away, but yeah, but that is just woeful defending, and Soapy gets caught out a mile. Cornelius doesn't help him. They don't close the boy down when he does get into the box. But Tav with the throw in as well, it was just a calamity of errors. I don't know what you thought of it, but
Yeah, just on that first goal, and I think what you say, like a calamity of errors, it's almost like a domino effect. You can accept that, mistakes will happen, particularly even with this kind of style of football that, they're trying to implement, this kind of high risk, high reward strategy. But, Tav takes the throw, really to no one, aimed at Chermiti, but, it doesn't come off.
Yeah.
And then you look at John Suter, and he's just, he's just not there. He's not like tucked back in. The players are having to move across, and it just all becomes a bit of a mess. And I want to say it's almost like that kind of schoolboy defending, but I think that would be a bit of an insult to schoolboy defending if I'm entirely honest. And I think the thing for me is I wasn't even remotely shocked by it. You kind of sit yourself down, you get ready to watch the game, and then I'm like, what was it, 7 minutes on the clock? It's just,
Yeah.
it's another one of these kind of defensive howlers that we've become so used to since the start of the season.
Yeah, I'm naming this video today Kamikaze Martin Ball, and it's not just, a lot of people might think that I'm referring to the approach that Martin has taken when we fall behind. I'm talking about the defending as well. Our defending is just kamikaze. Like our high line with players that just, one, they're too slow to track back, and two, they don't possess the technical ability to play that kind of football. But I mean, there's an argument Magoma is maybe, jury's out on him. He's a young lad and he's not even our player, but he's been able to cope with it relatively well in the last few games. But even he was shocking today as well, last night I should say. But yeah, it's like you said, I wasn't surprised at all with it at all, and that's the worst thing about it. You're now expecting that from our defence, aren't you?
Yeah, just on the, like, you know, if you look at someone like Magoma, I don't know if I can say impressed is the word I would use, but I mean, I thought he's been, you know, steady, decent.
Yeah.
It's maybe some of the things since he's came in. I mean, he has 19 and, you know, and just kind of essentially you're out and out left back, which just seems, you know, bizarre. Considering we let, you know, Jeff Day and Yilmaz go out the door in the summer and never really replaced them, unless you want to think of Max Aarons in that position, which I dread to think of. But I mean, you look at the back line, I've seen a few people talk around John Souttar, like, you know, how can John Souttar be so good in the Scottish national setup, you know, and looks like a rock of a defender. Derek Cornelius, Canadian international, a guy who was at Marseille, you know, up until he came to us. You know, these are experienced players. You can almost forgive Magoma for making mistakes, you know, and almost that it's kind of a learning process for him, as much as, you know, we don't really have the time or, you know, the patience as a fan base to, you know, let people learn on the job. But
yeah,
I don't even have words. That's how I feel when I look at, you know, the two experienced centre backs, and, you know, it's just another one. You know, you've had Giga in, and, you know, he's been bombed out essentially as far as I can see. He's not even appeared really since Cornelius has came in. And then I thought we're all kind of quite happy with John Souttar, you know, playing in the right side where he should be, where he's more comfortable. But yeah, that from last night, I don't even know why you can't just see the danger and tuck in.
Yeah, you know, we could bang on about this defence all day, to be honest with you, but I've mentioned this before as well. Cornelius, there was one of the lads from Marseille that commented on Cornelius when he was over there and said that he playing a high line is useless. He's too slow at getting back. He said he's quite an educated footballer, but that aspect of his game is something that he was getting caught out with often at Marseille. I don't think he's been that bad since he's been here, but last night was evident that he get caught out coming back as well. But for me, Soapy was the biggest issue. And Soapy, you mentioned that he plays well for Scotland, because Scotland uses him in what I would call more like a traditional Scottish defender. You know, that kind of, I don't know, Braveheart-esque, you know, charging in there for the die-hard tackle. He's not a technical footballer, even though apparently he played as a kind of number 6 in his earlier days as well, which you would think would have kind of bred a bit more of a technical approach to his football, and in terms of coming out passing with the ball, but just doesn't seem evident with him at all. But anyway, we head up it's not all bad, right? I think that and Gassama is a player that I think that is probably deserves some plaudits last night. He was trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck and trying to make things happen up the left. But around about the 11th minute, he comes up with this is probably, I would say, our best opportunity of the match. He puts a lovely little ball over the top. Chermiti's there, climbs really well to get the ball, and I think he should at least challenge the goalkeeper, but he kind of scuffs the bar, and that was our first. It's again some of the fan reaction when I'm having banter with the lads that are watching the game. it's this automatic. Oh, he's pish. No, £8 million. I actually think he did quite well, Chimati, last night, based on the service that he was getting. But for me, that's a goal that he probably, like I said, he should have at least have been testing the keeper, because he did so well to climb up to it, get his head on it. Just didn't seem to keep it down enough.
Yeah, I mean, I did think the same as well. Like, he gets up well. I thought, oh, great, this is going to get, him off to, a decent start, kind of build some confidence. There's a lot of chat about, the amount of goals he's scored and the total of kind of transfer fees he's moved for. But I mean, yeah, I do think he should be scoring that. But just on him in general, Jim, I do think he done, decent. It's hard to say, done well. Decent is good nowadays, I suppose. But I do think he looks like he could be a player. Like, I see him, like he looks like he's got a bit of like power about him. He can run. He doesn't look, refer back to we've used to having like serial Dessers in the past, who I would probably take right now. But just on the he's got movement. It seems he's got a bit of agility. He doesn't seem that he's kind of stuck in this one place. He seems that he was willing to run, and I think there's definitely a player in there. But as we said earlier, there's just not enough service. I mean, that's the one chance in that half, and you're relying on him having 100% conversion rate, and it's just that's just not going to be the case in football. I'm
not getting prolific vibes off of this guy. I'll say that much. I think you're right. I mean, definitely, he looks like an athlete, right? And he's a big lump of a lad. And he definitely looks like he might be able to use his weight up there as well. And he looks like he like, based on that opportunity, he can get up to a ball and put the head on it. But it's just not striking me. And it's very early days, right? But he's not striking me as a prolific striker from the outset. So, but again, it's just so hard to judge the forward line, the way that this team plays, certainly the way they were set up in the first half. But no sooner as that opportunity happened, we go down the other end of the pitch. Ketishvili, is that his name? So we're around about the half hour mark, 34 minutes. Just a simple through ball, and the guy can't believe it. I actually think he looked a little bit embarrassed when he was celebrating it, but he smashes it in the back of the net. Just too easy, far too easy. And again, I don't want to just keep repeating ourselves, but just no surprise with that defence, because we just keep seeing it time and time again, whether it's on the ground, over the top, those through balls, we just keep getting sliced open, and it's just too easy.
I think I was almost in, I can't believe I'm saying this, but disbelief that it even happened. Like, when I seen it, and I was kind of going, there might be an offside in there. I think it was more in hope than anything else. But I was like, there's no way we've switched off, that quickly, and just, the player, as you said, has just ran through it. And I think you could tell a lot, just seeing kind of snippets on the camera, on the TV of like Jack Butland's reaction. He did not look happy with the fact that everyone had just switched off. And, just touching on Butland, like, I thought he was one of the better performers last night.
Yeah.
He definitely does seem back to his best, but part of me also thinks he's not had much choice because he's faced so many shots at goal.
Yeah. 2 seasons ago when Butland had that standout season, when he was getting touted of being sold for 15, 25 million, 40 million, whoever you were talking to, the ridiculous numbers that were being floated around. One of the reasons that he did so well that season was because of the sheer amount of opportunities that we were giving away, and the opportunities that he was getting to show that he's a superb shot stopper. And that's what he's doing at the moment, in my opinion. He's I don't think he's confident. I've mentioned this before, with the ball at his feet. I feel like he's shitting his pants every time it comes back to him, and he's got anyone near him. And I don't think it's he's the right keeper to play the I don't even like saying Martin's style, but whatever Martin's trying to do, I don't think he's the right keeper. But he's definitely saved us from getting a few gubbins this season so far. And it's actually, I don't want to jump ahead, but I might as well, because there's only really the Gassama goal to talk about that is a highlight before we go to the other end and start going kamikaze. But I'd noticed if you looked at the stats from the game last night, there was equal opportunities on attempts, and I think we were actually one more in shots on target. One of them on the other end, the lad Christensen that was in goal for Graz. 5 of those shots were in the same phase of play. I don't know if you recall when we were just tapping it towards their goal, he was making a save, and then another save and another save. So even stats again, this does my box in sometimes when you're talking to people and they're like, look at the stats, and no, use your eyes, right? I mean, there's stats that you can use to help you, but in the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got Butland, who in the first half alone, we probably could have been 3 or 4 down if it wasn't for Butland, and then in the second half, towards the end of the match, probably another 2 or 3 opportunities. So again, for me, Butland saved us from getting a 5 or 6-0. Well, it's a 5 or 6-1 or 2 scalping last night.
And I think that's a really kind of scary point you make, because I felt the exact same. I mean, I don't want to even go back there, but if you look at the Bruges game and the whole debacle around that and the overall scoreline, you're going, Butland again has saved it from, being worse, in terms of an aggregate score. And you think to yourself, right, that's a one-off. It's not going to happen again, like in terms of how bad and how many shots and potential score lines you're looking at. And then you look at last night, you look at, the game will go back to even just in terms of the chances that were given up. Like, a 5 or 6-0, even 4 as being the least amount of goals. I mean, it's just, it's really, really frightening that's you're going into games thinking.
Yeah, maybe we'll get Butland back up to the 25 million mark this season, the way things are going. I don't know. Every cloud and all that. But yeah, I kind of glossed over it there. But Gassama does. I mean, credit where it's due. Gassama again. Him and Butland for me were the only ones that could pass marks last night. Gassama does a lovely little mazy run up the left. As he does, turns it onto his right foot and smashes it. I thought it was a beautiful goal. And again, Gassama kind of almost making things happen on his own. Are we becoming too dependent on this boy? There doesn't seem to be much else coming from anywhere else. And I was thinking about this as well, because there's been a lot of criticism being put in Ant-Man's direction, and Mikey Moore for that matter. But I want to concentrate on Ant-Man, because I've heard, and I had this same opinion as well. Ant-Man, when he comes in, and sorry, Jack, I'd love to get your opinion on Gassama's goal as well, but just on the Ant-Man when he's in his first game for us, there's a lot of people saying it's been coached out of him, because the way that he was playing in the first match, he looked terrific, right? I don't understand what's going on here, because Gassama on the left is not turning inside the way that Ant-Man is all the time. Gassama's mixing it up. He is going down to the byline. He is turning onto his right foot when he gets the opportunity, and he's had some. We've reaped the rewards of him coming onto his right foot a few times. But Ant-Man on the other side just seems to constantly just cut onto his left foot and drive towards the defence when he's clearly a byline winger. So. Don't know, thoughts on the Gassama goal and Ant-Man, Jack?
Well, I'll start with the Ant-Man one, because it's a point I wanted to raise. When he went off at half time, I'd honestly completely forgotten he was on the park. Like that's the kind of level of performance, that he's been putting in. And I find it a really strange one, because as you said, like I'm of the opinion that he's, getting to the byline. I believe that the amount of assists he had, in the Eredivisie last season, in terms of, he's putting the ball in, he's getting crosses and he's getting assists, and he's just, I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know if it's, is it the environment, the pressure, of playing for it? Is all that getting to him? I really do not know, because I forgot he was on the park, and there's clearly a player in there, as we've seen from the Victoria Pilsen game when he first, announced himself at Rangers, if you will. Go back to Gassama. I genuinely get excited when he's on the ball. Like, there's an element of he can do something. But that's kind of where we've got us. We're becoming a bit, again, of a moments team. You're waiting on someone to do create a moment. And don't get me wrong, the goal was fabulous. He's taking the ball down, and I think as the game was going on, the fullback from Sturm Graz just was not really sure if he's going to go on the outside, he's going to come inside, and you could tell that Gassama, like, he knew he had his number in a way in terms of that, like, because it was just a lot of the good things really were going through him, and it was when he got on the ball, I thought something is going to happen here, and I feel that once we scored that goal, I definitely think I want to say kick on or dominated, but there's definitely more from Rangers, kind of from that point. And obviously, even before the goal, Rangers started the second half with a lot more desire, intensity, or just it was night and day compared to the first half.
Yeah, but what is it? I mean, what's going on with is Martin? If Martin wants to play like this, why is he not starting that way, right? I mean, this baffles me. Why are we? I mean, this is now becoming a pattern, right? We fall behind, we start chasing the game, and we just start throwing the kitchen sink at it. So, I mean, last night we end up bringing on. So Aarons comes on, Joe Rothwell comes on, Miovski comes on, Mikey Moore comes on, Danilo comes on. Clearly, that is with only one thought in mind, and that's just going full on attack, because Aarons is certainly not competent at defending from what we've seen, right? So he's bombing up the park, and probably why he got a goal in the last game as well. But Mikey Moore, not even going to get started on this kid, because I've been bashing him enough. I don't need to say any more about him. Miovski's coming on. We've still got Chimiti on the pack. Danilo comes on. At one point in time, we've got 3 strikers in the park. We've got 3 attacking midfielders in the park. It's almost as if we've got a back 3 with no wingers. Even Aaron's an inverted winger if you want. So I don't know. What do you make? I'm torn with one chain of thought that we should be attacking the game and trying to win because we're behind. And then in the other chain of thought, I'm like, this guy has got absolutely zero tactical nous whatsoever. He's got his way of playing, or he's got throw the kitchen sink at it, and neither one of them is effective. Like if we were to start a game throwing the kitchen sink at it, we'd just get caught out of the back so often, and then teams would just sit back and absorb what we're throwing at them. And you might get the odd goal here and there. That's my opinion anyway. But so throwing the kitchen sink at it is not an approach, but it's his approach when his actual approach doesn't work, if that makes sense. So I don't know what to make of it. You're right. I think we do take control of the game, but I don't know. What do you make of it? Is it just, I don't know. It's tough to call. Just not giving me the impression that he's got a lot of his plan B is throw the kitchen sink, and that I don't think that's a good plan B. So.
Well, I think on the kitchen sink analogy, like you said, like for me as well, and I think everyone will agree, it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable kind of style of football. And as you said, like I personally don't have an issue with that if you're chasing a game. Like you said, I can be a bit conflicted behind it because you're like, I want them to get a goal, I want them to score a goal, I want them to get back into this game, and I can understand that it's getting a bit more desperate towards the end. And yes, you will concede chances. Like, I don't really have an issue with conceding chances when you are trying to get back into the game. But like you said, you can't start like that. And then when he starts with his tactics, I really actually dread to call it tactics because sometimes I'm not even sure myself. There's just nothing there. It's the fact that the centre backs and maybe the number 6, like they get a lot of the ball, and it's these short sideways passes that I think I'd seen a lot of chatter between like online and from people I was talking to, that the moment that he abandons his plan A, we look so much better, which is just the most bizarre thing if you think about it in that regard, because if we're spending all week training and coming up with these plans and what the tactics are, that then, you know, that we actually look better on the stuff that we've not done.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more to say about this game, honestly. Like, it's, like I said, Kamikaze at the back, or it's Kamikaze at the front. And I mentioned earlier on, we towards the end of that game could have easily conceded another 2 as well. And that was that phase of play earlier on that I mentioned as well in the second half, where there was about 4 or 5 of those shots that were tallied up. It was just ping pong back between our players and the keeper. So that's what are we now? 5 losses, 5 draws, and 5 wins, 5 draws, and 6 losses. 31% win ratio. I think we're -3, -4 in goal difference. Just, I don't know. We'll get on to this. I know some people get wound up when listening to Martin and his pressers, but we have to talk about them, because I think they're just as telling of the man as what we're seeing on the pitch with what we're seeing in the pressers. And you know, and he comes out last night and he first of all gives the TNT interview where it's just 2 minutes of mentality. You can actually see the guy that's interviewing him. I'm not sure of the journalist's name, but he's actually getting a bit wound up. He's pressing Martin more and more. But what are you going to do about it? But what are you going to do to change it? And he asks him about 3 or 4 times, and I just get really wound up before I even get to the post-match presser with the post-match interview. He's just smirking and just mentality. I've told you, mentality, smirk, mentality. This guy for me is so bad at endearing himself to the crowd. He's not for me at all. But I mean, the post-match presser, the official post-match presser, gets even worse. But yeah, what did you make of the TNT interview?
Well, the journalist who was the interviewer who was doing the TNT one last night, I thought he was pressing him. There's another gentleman's name who I can't quite remember, but he had done a couple of them, particularly the Bruges one, and then I think he was also doing the Genk one previously, and he was really pressing them on, you know, what are you going to do, or, you know, like, why is this a problem, or, you know, almost like trying to say to Martin, like, where's the solutions, you know, or, and as you said, there's almost like I don't know if I'll call it arrogance, because that's what I perceive it as. And it's like, I've always thought that, you know, if you're maybe someone who's like a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola or a Jose Mourinho, you know, you're entitled to almost have that bit of arrogance about you because you've got a body of work behind you. Like, he doesn't have that. You know, there's a lot of reference to, he went on a 25, you know, game winning streak in the championship. And, you know, yes, he got them out of there ahead of Leeds, but, you know, it was via the playoffs. It wasn't like, you know, they romped the league, you know, as such. But it just baffles me, you know, the way he is and mentality. And he never really seems to take any sort of, you know, responsibility at all. And for me, that's the main, you know, thing that I have an issue with. And probably our Rangers fans, you know, people can have their, you know, their ideas as a coach and what they want to do, but when you take no responsibility, like you said, you're not endearing yourself to the fans at all. A lot more respect is given if you go out and go, do you know what? I got this set up wrong. We changed it in the second half. Yeah, we all kind of almost went for it a bit, but, you know, just even that acknowledgement, there's nothing. And as you move to the official post-match press conference, the one for me was he was having a conversation around the throw-ins. So someone had said, you know, like, why have you conceded goals like this from throw-ins and free kicks? You know, it's happened, you know, a few times this season. And he went, well, I don't think we've, you know, have we? It was like, rather than just be like, you know, it's just any way to defend, you know, the situation. It's like, throw-ins are really important. We spend a lot of time working in throw-ins. And when he said that, I was like, well, maybe if you spent less time working in throw-ins and more time on, you know, patterns of play, that might have seen, you know, better results. But I just, do you know, it's painful to watch, but there's almost an amusement element of it, because it's just, I'm shocked at what comes out his mouth now.
Yeah, I caught that one as well. It does leave you speechless, doesn't it? It's you're just. It's as if he's saying, "This is like if they were doing what I was coaching them, everything would be okay, but they're not doing what I'm coaching them." And he puts that down to mentality. A few days ago, he gives the team credit for the mentality coming back against Livy. I'm just, I think it's been mentioned in other shows as well. If you're one of those players in that dressing room and this manager's, he comes out 1 week from the next, he throws you under the bus. Then the next week he says that you're magnificent and your attitude is great. And then the next week he says that you're anxious and you're scared. And then the next week you're magnificent. And now this week you're not showing the right mentality. You're not running enough. He keeps talking about that. They don't run for each other. They don't protect each other. I don't know if I'm one of those players. I cannot imagine that's a happy dressing room whenever they're hearing this constant critique of them and never any. I'll I'll give him one. I'll give him his dues. A couple of days ago, he gives the interview where he starts giving the parenting lessons and stuff like that. I don't know if you caught that one right, but it's the first time I've heard him say, "We have made mistakes." He said that line and I thought that was, out of all the noise in that conference, that press conference that he gave, I heard that one line, and it's the first time I've heard him give any indication that he is admitting that he is culpable for some of the issues that are going on. Everything else we're seeing is him just throwing blame at anyone else. But sorry, with the exception of Thelwell, Stewart, and the bros. Yeah, I don't know. The post-match presser for me, one of the statements that he made was, "We dominated for 60 minutes," and I just, are we living in a simulation and we're not seeing? I don't get it. I don't get it. How can he sit there with a straight face and make a comment like that? I'll give credit where it's due, and again we'll go back to throwing the kitchen sink at it. I'd even say throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks. Maybe 25 minutes of that game there was dominance from us. There was a prolonged period where we were attacking, and there wasn't much coming back at us. But to say we dominated for 60 minutes, come on.
Yeah, just on that, on that statement and other kind of statements or his observations he makes, it's like we're not daft, fans. Like, we can see it. Like, we are watching our team week in, week out. We can see the regression or the lack of cohesion, a system, patterns of play, all that kind of those buzzwords that everyone likes to throw around as a coach and a kind of modern day football person. There's just nothing there. And for him to say that we dominated for 60 minutes is just, it's mind boggling. Like, it's just, I honestly have no words. I mean, it's almost like there's almost a Russell Martin bingo card in my head now. Like, what's the next thing? I was remotely surprised he didn't try and blame the pitch. That, to be honest, it looked a bit patchy and cutting up in places, but it didn't look, the worst. So I'm surprised that one didn't go there. We've heard the anxiety, we've heard mentality. Yeah, just as you said, like, I actually go back before I go on to that. There was a statement I read, about, I think it might be from the Sky Sports interview after the Genk game and before the Livingston game, around how would you like it if I went to your workplace and started screaming at you and your colleagues? Like, how would you feel in that environment? And I was kind of going, it's totally irrelevant. It's a total different, scenario. So I don't know what to make of them anymore. I really, truly don't. And the dressing room, as you said, it can't be enjoyable to come into that, environment and not really know what you're going to get. Are you going to get praise? Or are you going to get blame?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. I'd love to know what's going on with NCALA as well. Is this guy a game changer? Like, should he be playing week in, week out? I don't know, but I'd love to understand what's went on there. Something happened with him and Igamani. Something's clearly happened with him and Raskin. There's been other rumours about other stuff that, they're just rumours, so who knows? But there's definitely been some issues with some players. I cannot imagine that as a happy dressing room. I just can't. There's no way. And people can joke about them going up to Loch Lomond and going for a swim and a walk and stuff like that. Whatever. If we started winning games, nobody would be talking about it the way they are. If we were winning games at the time, nobody would bat an eyelid at it. But as the majority of footballers, from my experience, are blue collar people, right? I don't know if going for a swim in Loch Lomond and going for a walk in the mountains is really the kind of thing that the majority of them would be that interested in. But who am I to judge? I just can't, to my point, I just don't think that this manager, he's certainly not endearing himself to us. I can't imagine he's endearing himself to those players. So I don't know. Where do you go from here? But let's take it off field for a moment, and there has been some news in the doing the rounds this week that I think it's been covered to death at this point. But I really wanted to give an opinion on it because it's actually went a step further today with the announcement of the CCO, or is it COO or CCO? I'm not sure.
COO,
COO, yeah. So a couple of days ago we hear, and let's not even mention his surname, right? I just want to give you this guy's CV, right? We've got a new head of recruitment. He's a 26-year-old. That's fine. Well, there's he might be a wonder kid as a in the scouting world. Previous roles: technical scout at Wolves. He was his manager at that point. The head, the sporting director, also shared his name. So that's yeah. And then he's a scout at he's a technical scout at Wolves for 4 years, 2016 to 2020. He becomes a scout at Aston Villa from 2020 to 2023. And then he's the head of technical scouting and loans at Norwich between 2023 until now. Norwich, by the way, since he came in 2023, they had finished sixth or seventh the season before that. The last 2 seasons, I think they finished 13th and 11th, something like that. So certainly not moving in the right direction. So before I even mention his name, does that sound like somebody you want as your head of recruitment, Jack?
No. And I can't even elaborate any further on that, because just on that CV alone, when I seen that said CV, I was like, this can't be real. I genuinely thought it could have been a bit of a stitch up, or one of those, crazy Rangers rumours you hear, and I thought someone's, pulling my leg here when I read this.
Yeah. So yeah, his name's Thelwell, Robbie Thelwell, as if no one knew that already. But I'm speechless that our owners have sanctioned this. That is the biggest concern for me. To be so oblivious and tone deaf, the optics of how this would look, and even from a working business perspective, like if there's no way you don't have a conflict of interest. There's no way you can be impartial when you're managing your own child. It's not even as if they're at the same club and they're in different departments. He's literally the direct line manager for his own child, a 26-year-old with a less than appealing CV that is now our head of recruitment, who I've covered in the past. Thelwell's past with buying and selling players. Seems to be quite good at selling a player here and there, but not great at buying them. And this young lad, his son, has been under his father's leadership for 4 years in the past, when Wolves had a relatively successful period. But as I've mentioned in other videos before, there was a Mendes model that was implemented by Santo Nunes, or Nunes Santo. I never get it right. I always feel like I'm a Buddha saying Nunes Espirito de Santo whenever I say his name. Somebody will clip that up and make an ass of me, but that's fine. But yeah, he seemed to be doing the recruitment back at Wolves when they had that successful period. I'm just astounded that they've let this happen. And then today, with all the press saying it's kind of jobs for the boys, they go ahead and appoint a COO, a former colleague of Patrick Stewart from Manchester United, Jim Leggett. No idea who he is. No idea if he's good at his job. And by the way, Robbie Thelwell, I've no idea if he's good at his job either. But the optics of everything that's going on right now is just appalling. And again, I can't stress enough, our leadership allowing this to happen, in my opinion, is very telling and very, very concerning.
Yeah, I mean, where do you actually even begin? I mean, so on the Robbie Thelwell appointment, I mean, first and foremost, I would love nothing more than it worked out, and this guy, brings in some fantastic players, identifies what good players to bring in, but I mean, it does not pass the smell test, as that's the way I can look at it. I mean, it's nepotism. You're looking at talking about the impartiality of it. Like, there's no way you can almost manage him the same way, as you would another member of the staff. Like, it's almost impossible. Like, to even say. I mean, the thing is, if it was different departments, you could maybe look at it and go, right, okay, that might be a good way of, you're using resources or things that but it's not. I mean, then you've talked about the new COO, previously of Man U, Patrick Stewart, and then you've also had, I think the gentleman's name was Nathan Fisher, come up from Everton as well.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
the new head of scouting. I can't remember the exact kind of terminology they've used for it, and it's just like, as you said, jobs for the boys. It just feels like it's just there's almost a lack of respect towards like all the fans. It's like, we're being treated almost less of an institution is what I like to think, a club like Rangers is.
Yeah.
And it's like we're this at the bottom tier Premier League, mid-tier championship team that we can just, let's come up and, I'll get you a job up here. Like that's almost what it feels like the phone call would have been. And then we talk about these, strenuous processes and, the way we're, identifying the best of the best. I mean, the coincidence that the best of the best leads to Robbie Thelwell, and who's the sporting director's son. I just, one heck of a coincidence if that's the case.
Yeah, Purdy as well. He came in from Everton as well. It's just the worst thing about this is none of these guys on paper or there's no evidence that these guys have been successful in their other roles. There's some glimpses of it. Like I mentioned, like could I say that Wolves was all Santo? Clearly not. He was a sporting director. He had to make deals. But I think the players were identified by someone outside of his remit. I don't think he was driving that. And I think I've covered that in detail previously, although I stuttered the way through the video. But nonetheless, there's no evidence that any of these other guys that they've brought in have been successful. Purdy is more of an analytics guy as well. So, but I think that one of the other lads that they've brought in that is worked for a data company that was doing sports data. His name escapes me. I don't think it was the lad you mentioned there, was it? Is it the same lad?
No, I don't think it was Nathan Fisher, but there was another analyst who was mentioned to be coming up the road. I don't know if he was from Everton or he's from somewhere else down south.
No,
but
he's not. He's had some experience in direct, working directly with football teams, but most of his experience has been working in data networks, basically, or I don't know what's the platforms, data platforms. So I've actually heard some other prominent podcasters mention his name and say that they've worked with him and he's quite good at his job. So time will tell, but we've now got I think we've got about 3 or 4 people doing the job that Niles Coppin was doing before, and 2 of them at least, 3 of them, sorry, are jobs for the boys, Thelwell. So I don't know. I mean, time will tell if this. We're not, like you said, we're not stupid. We're probably one of the most educated fan bases on the planet at this point because we've been through so much. We've seen so much of these red flags, and we know where they lead. But for me, this feels like another level. I don't remember seeing it being this explicitly in front of our eyes that there's something very strange going on and very concerning. So, yeah.
Just on that, I mean, you talk about like how it feels like another level, and I think it does because you look back at some of the appointments, like we go back to like Michael Beale and even like towards the end of Clement's time, and we weren't maybe as a fan base necessarily happy with how the club was being run, and we thought we needed like outside investment and fresh ideas and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, the driving factor was around the football, the lack of success, the lack of whether it be an identity and a way of playing and all those sorts of things. Like, the football and the not winning was the driving factor. Even though these other things were important, for a lot of the fan base, it was like, we want to win, we want to win trophies. That's what we're used to. However, now it is just, as you said, it's another level. It looks so almost like unprofessional and like laughable. Like, it's one of those things that if someone told me about it, I would be like, there's not a chance that that's an actual scenario that's being played out in real life.
Yeah, well, I think we'll close on this story as well. That there has been and I do want to correlate this to one of my biggest concerns, right? So, I thought it was a hospitality. It was in hospitality that this video was made, but apparently it was in one of the hotels after the game last night. I'm not sure if it was last night or Livingston, but the stories I'm reading is this video is coming from the hotel bar that some of the fans were staying in. The executive board were also staying in last night, and there's a video of the fans confronting initially. I was going to say Robbie Thelwell there. He's
too many Thelwells.
That'll come, yeah, I know. But Kevin Thelwell is being confronted by a fan. It doesn't look that aggressive, right? He's one of them. He's kind of they're clutching each other side with their arms around each other's side, and you can see the Rangers fan is obviously telling Thelwell that this isn't good enough, and what's he going to do about it? Repeatedly, I can hear Thelwell saying things like, "What do you want me to do about it? What do you expect me to do about it?" And then he's confronted by another fan. Patrick Stewart enters the equation as well. Patrick Stewart is saying things like, "Do you want me to shout back at you?" Which I don't know what he's trying to pull there. I mean, I don't know if Patrick Stewart doesn't seem like the most intimidating fella to me, but he seems to try and be a bit intimidating back to the fan who's been a bit more aggressive, but still not aggressive. He's being passionate, right? He's amplifying the feelings that we all have, and he's telling Thelwell and Stewart that we're scunnered. What are they going to do about it? And again, Thelwell's saying, "I'm scunnered too. I feel it too." All this kind of stuff, and I just think, for the sporting director to be standing there and saying, "What do you want me to do about it?" I think it's very telling of how clueless Thelwell is about what he is actually going to do about this, And it's hard because he's in an environment where he's being confronted by fans. Who knows what those fans might do. So I do appreciate it's quite an intimidating atmosphere for him and Patrick Stewart to be in, because especially how passionate the fans are and how angry the fans are right now, and they know that, right? They're not. They must know it. If they don't, there's an even bigger problem than I thought there was. But I just thought their response was very telling. I don't know what you thought of it, Jack.
Yeah, so I'd seen it, and like you said, there's only so much maybe Kevin Thelwell can do, like being presented with that scenario. It's not like a pre-prepared in-house interview when he knows the questions and he's got his answers all prepared. So I kind of do appreciate that part of it. And I think it's quite clear to highlight, like you said, like there might be some people viewing it as aggressive. I don't think it was. I think it was passion. There was, a few sweary words flung in there, but that's football, that's fans, that's what passionate fans bring. But the statements such as like, what do you want me to do about it? And I think there was one from Patrick Stewart with the other fan that was quite animated, and he said, who would you pick for the manager job? Like, who would you choose? Yeah. And I'm just like that just baffles me. Like, it's almost like that kind of playground argument where you just kind of throw it back to someone else and try and catch them out with their own question. And it was just like that just really concerns me that they they almost like don't know like what the next step should be. And you always hear a lot of these about forward planning and having like ideas of who like there's been a lot of pressure on Martin for a long time. People didn't want him even when he was in the door. Like, as soon as this pressure was starting to build, there should have been some planning in place in terms of like who the next person is. And you hear all those kind of chats and rumors, and that's maybe what's happening. But for then your two prominent people to say, who would you want? It's like, have you been doing that work? Are you just hoping that it goes away? Are you hoping that we just? But it's like I said, to me, it's almost that kind of disrespectful way of the fans, as if like this whole time it's like we know better than you, which is really, really irked me. It's like like you will come and pay your money and come see your team, but we know better. We know how to make these decisions. We're football people.
Yeah, do you know the worst thing? It's like watching us defend. I wasn't surprised at it either, right? I mean, you're right, for Patrick Stewart to say to a fan who should we appoint. I mean, and the fan was quite right. That's your job, right? I mean, that is your job. Why are you throwing that back in us? That this is we are clearly identifying that Martin is not the right man for the job. It's your job to fix it. So, but again, just not surprising. And I mentioned earlier on, I want to correlate this to something else. These guys are based in and around the club. They're on the ground, like they're going to be exposed to fans on a daily basis. Whether that's commuting to work, going out for a meal, whatever it might be, and they're going to have a lot of fans that are just as passionate as that confronting them, and that will not be easy. And that I'm not condoning that kind of stuff, but I think it will certainly. There's more potential for that to have an impact on their decision making, where they might make the changes that are being demanded of the fans. My concern is the people who are actually making the top level decisions are nowhere to be seen. Most of them are over in the US. I mean, I don't know what the workings of the 49ers Kavanagh enterprise deal is. How much is Marath in charge? How much is Kavanagh in charge? I've mentioned before, Kavanagh has got zero experience with sporting enterprises, period. Never mind a football, soccer or football enterprise, whatever you want to call it in the US, or a franchise. There's nothing on his CV that pertains to anything other than pharmaceuticals. Marath is at least he's been dealing with sporting enterprises for a while over in the US with the American football, and then obviously with Leeds more recently. But these guys are nowhere to be seen. That Kavanagh flew in for a few days, but he goes back home and he doesn't have to deal with this on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know what you think of that, Jack, but I'm concerned that these guys are out of the picture and they won't feel the pain.
Well, that's the thing, and it's almost like trying to give the word for it, but it's almost like I'm not washing their hands of it, but like they're putting all that onus on the people on the ground, as you said, like, and it's it's almost like a dereliction of looking after their well-being in a sense. And I know that's a bit extreme, but like they should be going, right, that is happening. Why is this happening? And there just seems, as you said, Andrew Kavanagh came over. Seen a couple of games, jumped back and he's playing, and he's away back, to focus on his pharmaceuticals or whatever it is that he, actually is an expert in as such. But The one thing that really strikes me, and a lot of people are saying, they're nowhere to be seen. We need to hear from the owners, and that statement they made when the takeover is complete is, you won't hear a lot from us. You only hear from us when it's not going right, or things are going wrong. I mean, I don't know if they've noticed, but they've been going wrong for quite a while. I mean, a lot of discussion, even go back to just in this point about the Livingston game last week, is, you have that euphoria of a last minute winner and everyone's, jumping around, and I was going to say the away end, but most of Livingston Stadium is ours on those kind of games. But to then instantly 20 seconds later, just that's it, back to the Martin, get out chance, shall we say, to put it cleanly. Like, so there is problems and they really need to address it.
Yeah. I don't know how much more vocal the fans can be. I know there's a lot of people now talking about just completely boycotting matches, and I don't like that. But I mean, what can you do? I mean, at what point is enough enough? And I think we're already past that point, personally. So if they're not going to make changes now, I try and stay away from rumours, but there is talk that he's getting the season. And if that's the case, I really, again, I'm just not speechless. I am speechless if that is the case. I'm getting to the point now where I think that apathy is becoming a bit of a buzzword when it comes to Rangers at the moment. And I get it. I've mentioned it on a number of occasions that I'm watching games and I'm getting to like the 70th minute or maybe a little bit beyond that, and that apathy kicks in where I'm done. The game's, I know what's going to happen, and I'm just zoning out. But I don't have apathy. I'm past the point of anger. I'm actually quite sad. I'm sad at this point that everything we've been through and the optimism that we had with these new owners, and this is what we're being served right now. Just sad. And I'm not violin sad. I'm aggressively sad. Do you know what I mean? That I'm absolutely scunnered, mate. And I don't know what will happen against Falkirk, and it's fucking Falkirk, and I don't have confidence we'll beat them. So that's where we're at, and I just don't know what's around the corner. I don't really know what to say anymore. It's getting to that point.
Yeah, just for me, because before we finish up, I think the thing for me is that point you talked about, apathy. I mean, I'm so used to watching Rangers and being like, I want to say angry, but you're in a game and the result doesn't go your way and you get annoyed and you get angry about it, but you'll go, right, okay, there's a game on Wednesday, there's a European game, there's a cup game, or we go to next week, and you almost believe that they're going to put it right, and you kind of go, right, okay, we can kick on. But like you said, it's getting to that point where the apathy has set in, because I see, like last night, even after those 2 goals, I was just like, I was contemplating what other football's on, what else can I watch, like, to save me suffering it, yeah. So I really don't know. Falkirk, it just depends what Rangers you get, I suppose.
Yeah, I did contemplate putting the Shelburne game on last night. It was getting played at the same time. No, I'm joking. Actually, I would never do that. But anyway, but I hear you. It's I don't know, for anyone that's tuning in, please leave your comments and let us know how you're feeling. I think I probably know the answer to 99% of the fans at this point, but I'd love to hear from anyone that's tuning in, and yeah. So, well, Jack, thank you so much for joining me, and I can't believe we spoke for over an hour already. It's very welcomed to have someone to bounce off. I think I mentioned this when we were chatting last night, but talking to yourself can be a bit challenging sometimes. So I really appreciate you joining me, and long may it continue. I'd love to have you back on as often as you can, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's nice to put my Rangers grievances somewhere else, and that slightly more useful and benefit to someone else. But yeah, it's been fantastic. So thank you so much for having me along.
Yeah, thank you again, Jack. Thank you for tuning in, all. This is the Bold and Blue 1872. If you could please like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Until next time, enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We are gold and blue, born in 1872, the greatest team in the world. We are known as we follow on. We are the people through and through, the gold and blue since 1872. With our hearts on fire, we rise.